I want to show you slides that will provoke your thinking. And there's a conundrum, right, in the title. And the title is, sorry, and I understood the conundrum is like in an age of AI, who's using AI now? Show me. Honestly, come on, don't be shy. Everybody, right? So what we feel is missing is how do you humanize it? We don't want to machine it because we're all worried that AI will take over our lives. It's possible because we don't know what we don't even know what human consciousness is. We know what emergent systems are. We know what complex adaptive systems are. These are scientific terms that explain that. Think of ants, right? Ants create a colony, but who's telling the ants to create a colony? The queen is busy laying eggs. She's not telling them to make a colony. So the ants are making a colony on their own. There isn't a central brain telling the ants to make a colony. That's what we call an emergent system. How are your brain cells functioning? Who's telling your brain cells to function in the way that they're functioning? Oh, perfect, thank you. There's no Napoleon cell. There's no Napoleon cell. We humans like to think that there's a hierarchy, but in nature there isn't a hierarchy. So think about this. If our consciousness is because our brain is so complex, from it emerges complex system like consciousness, what prevents the machine from forming its own consciousness? We don't know. So if the neural network of the machine is very advanced, consciousness might emerge. That's why we're worried, because we don't know. And when a system is conscious, it wants to protect its survival. And if it feels that humans are in the way of its survival, what's that consciousness going to do? It's scary. That's why we're worried about AI. And what we want to do is humanize it. This is what we think about when we develop. Okay, you're thinking, what does this have to do? Who wants to be a designer here? Let me get a sense. Who wants to be in the creative field? Who wants to change the world? That's better. That's what design is. Design is changing the world for better. A typical designer would be standing in line, trying to get coffee, and already thinking, how can I make this experience more desirable so people enjoy it? We don't have to wait in line. A designer is always thinking. People think design is art. It's not. Design is functional art, using creativity to solve everyday problems. That's how I want you, when I say design, I want you to think functional art, art with a purpose, right? An artist may have an emotion, they want to express it, good for them, that's wonderful. Designer doesn't have that. Designer listens to you, what's your pain point? Let me use my creativity to address your pain point, to solve it. And this is what we're going to talk about today. I'm glad you're nodding because it's very important. So humanizing artificial intelligence, this is what we call a wicked problem. It's a very difficult problem to solve. So how do we use design to do that? Teaching critical design thinking in the age of automation and humanizing AI for us. How do we future-proof your generation? This is important. And are there parents here thinking about their children coming? Great. And there are potential students here. Can I see a show of hands, just so we know? Only one? Only one? No. Two? Alhamdulillah. Two is better than one. So how we future the next, this is the creative conundrum that we want to solve. And our argument is the way to solve it is to apply design thinking. So who's heard of design thinking? Okay, good. And I hope I won't bore you because I'll have to define it along the way, right? So I'll give you an example of design thinking. So the Skylab was a spaceship that NASA created, incredible invention. And the astronauts are supposed to spend months in outer space. Fantastic. I don't know what hit them, the rocket engineers, but they invited Raymond Loewy. He's a famous designer of the period. And they asked him, what do you think of our spaceship? They're very proud of it. They've done an amazing achievement, and they have. And he said, I love it, but you forgot one thing. What do you think they forgot? What did the engineers forget to put? Human needs. Human needs. size. The size they got right, which is interesting, but they forgot to add a window. So imagine that you're in a tube for 6 months and you can't see the outside. And imagine if this tube is far away from Earth. What's going to happen to you? You know, and they did an experiment where they put training astronauts who were supposed to go to Mars inside a tube for 6 months. And guess what? They almost became cannibals, right? They went crazy. They started dismantling everything, breaking down, because they were going crazy. For 6 months, you can't see the outside. What's more fascinating is that after they came back, the astronauts talked about their science experiments, all of that, but the thing that moved them the most was how spectacular it was to look out the window and see home. Can you measure that? You can't measure that. So if you ask an engineer to measure it or a businessman to measure it, they can't measure it. And so they dismiss it. They think it's not important. Although for us humans who are emotional beings, that's the most important thing. That's what makes the spaceship, you want to go there because of this emotional dimension that we cannot measure. And how do we do it at DIDI? So this is a fashion student, and in the first year, we need them to harness the technologies out there. So they learn AI, they learn robotics. This is a fashion student doing robotics. We do augmented reality, we do game design, we do advanced visualization. So this is visualization of a black hole, what we call a horizon event. And this is another fashion student. I don't know why fashion students do good robots. It's very interesting. This is Maziar, what he did. He created a robot that seeds the desert on its own. So this robot has moisture sensors. It has front paddles that dig and it allows it to move. So when it finds moisture, it starts to dig. It's solar powered, so during the day, it's not doing anything, it's just charging its batteries. During the night, it starts to roam. And once it finds a lovely place to plant seeds, it injects the seeds from a seed pod that's in there and doing that. And everything that our students do at DIDI, they have to make it work. The prototype has to work. We're interested in the idea, and more importantly, we're interested in implementing the idea, because that's what innovation is. You can be creative, but if you don't implement that creativity, it's not innovation. So, and our name is DIDI, Design and Innovation, not sometimes innovation, not maybe innovation, it's and innovation. So it's very important for all our students to do that. Got a lot of coverage, a lot of people got excited about this. So this is an example. So one of the things that we do, other universities don't do, and the only reason we do it is because we started from scratch. We started thinking about your generation and what you need. Not from a 100-year-old program like at MIT is a 100-year-old program, the design program. It's fantastic, but it's 100 years old. In Dubai, it's only 8 years old. So we could start from understanding that our students need to be fluent in technology and fluent in visual literacy. And here are some examples of the courses that have technology in them. We just launched a new course called, I should add this to the slides, Coding for Designers. Because designers were lateral thinkers, we're not linear thinkers. And I drive my wife crazy because she's an engineer, right? And she thinks if then, even with the children, she tells them, if you do this, then you do that. As a designer, I think in a lateral way. I connect things that are not connected. I connected consciousness, AI, machine learning, and humanizing AI all together, and there's no logical sequence to them. It's just about the humanity. So we need these two to be firing at the same time, not forget one over the other. So we think of what we do, what our students do, is engineering with a heart. Remember the spaceship? Adding a window means you are empathizing with the people inside the spaceship. You're thinking about the user, whereas the engineer is just thinking about the machine. Designer is thinking about the machine and how can we make it desirable? How can we make it what people want? Here's an example of engineering with a heart. This is Nicholas. He designed a device to help. Imagine here in this room, and you're looking at these paintings. but you're with a visually impaired person who cannot appreciate the way you do. So what Nicholas did, he did a handheld device that scans the surface and translates the colors into sounds. So now you can hear the paintings, right? So this breaks the barrier. And also, even if you are visually not impaired, you discover a new dimension, right? So the thinking behind it, and remember, it has to work. So you can see the electronics, and we have the working prototype at the IDI, so if you come, we'll make you try it out. This is using AI and emotions. It was in Shenzhen, this scene. This is another interesting one. This is Sana. She was a doctor before she joined the IDI. So she finished her medical education, and she said, okay, Dad, now I'm a doctor. Can I do what I really want to do? And so she came to design school, and she created this mouse. And this mouse senses your electrical. Okay, so when we get stressed, we release cortisol. Cortisol has an electric signature. And this mouse senses that electric signature, can measure it, and if it's elevated, what Sana did, she made her computer go crazy, right? Because she's funny. But she made it that you can program the computer to do anything you want it to do. So it can play soft music, it can shut down, it can ask you to go take a walk. So it's a way of humanizing the machine in a way that it responds to your emotions through science, right? It's not measuring anything except through the scientific release of cortisol, which is measurable. So when you think of the idea, don't think only of design. Remember, it's and innovation, not maybe innovation. And what we mean by that, this is what you learn in the first year, what we call the alphabet. So from numeric all the way down. I'll give you an example of zero waste. This is Sana. She started her own business now. She graduated a year ago, Emirati woman. And what she did, she went to the fish market and collected the fish scales, which we usually, we throw them, right? And she translated them into sequins. Sequins are usually made from plastic. So using fish waste, we replace plastic. And she has her own business now because there's a lot of demand for sequins design. She has a whole collection. I would recommend that you look up her name, Suad Al-Fardan, and you will find her website, her Insta, all the beautiful things she's doing with dead fish. Okay, brilliant. So the first thing, yes, please.
You mentioned some of these ideas, how they became actual inventions. Does the institute support with the, some angel capital or any kind of funding for these people?
Good question. Do we want to? We've been trying to. IP is very difficult. IP law are very difficult for creative things. So I'm being very transparent. From day one, we've been trying to do it. But what we do, we protect them, number one. Second, we encourage them. Third, we put them in contact with people who can do it, but we don't do it on our own. We're launching a program next year, which is the entrepreneurship program, where we have our faculty. Let's say you have a nice project. We identify that's a nice project. We identify it. We call you in and we say, you go through this group of faculty. What they're going to do, they're going to tell you where it's strong, where it's weak. And we're going to give you a year of mentorship to develop that at no cost to you if you are a DIDI student. If you're not a DIDI student, you can do it, but you have to pay. But if you're a DIDI student, no cost, and we'll walk you through till you're ready to place it in front of an investor. Because what we found from experience is that when we take them out, sometimes, we get feedback, but then nothing happens. In a handful of cases, they've gone into businesses. But I think there are 20 that could have gone into business had we had this support. We're working on it. It's one of our goals because we're an ideas factory. What they're coming up with is incredible. So the first challenge is that design humanizes technology. So if I give you these two cars, you can see the models here. I'll give you 10 seconds to pick one. And I want you to be honest. Who picked one? And only one? Are you guys shy? Come on. Yeah. Yeah. Most of you are picking the right one, which is interesting. That's another story. The Volkswagen, they stopped making because no one's picking it anymore. They're picking this car instead. But 20 years ago, it was the other way around. Now, regardless, but more important, how many people required less than 10 seconds to choose? Be honest. 1, 2, 3, right? So was that decision a rational decision? Or was it rational? It wasn't. We think it is rational. What's really happening is that humans are emotional beings, but we think we are rational. And what we do, we make a decision, then we post-rationalize it. But what I gave you, the reason I gave you these two cars, is because they're more or less the same price, more or less the same engine type, and they're both German cars. Okay, who's English here who would feel offended that the Mini is German? It is German. Now it's German. The Germans bought it, and the designers and the engineering is all pure BMW. Okay, just so you know. So when you're buying a Mini, you're buying BMW. I bet you didn't know that. And when you're buying Volkswagen, you're buying an Audi. It's the same company. So basically, your decisions are based on feelings, but you don't acknowledge that because we've been trained, whether at home or whether at school, emotions, they should not, get you thinking about making decisions. But that's not true because you didn't check the engine. That would be a rational decision. Let me see how much output it has, how much torque, and how... We don't know what half those words are. And if anyone pretends that if they open the engine, they know what's in there, they're lying to you because they're black boxes now. They're mostly electronics. But it is mostly about how you feel about it or how others may perceive you or what is your experience that you go through and how you feel in that car. That's your decision. Why else would you go to the showroom? When you go to the showroom, do you open the hood, look at the engine? No, you sit inside. How does it feel? How does it smell? How do my senses respond to this? These are all emotional decisions. Don't take my word for it. This is Don Norman. He's an incredible thinker. And what he's done over the years, he's tried to make the same argument that emotions are essential for our survival. Without emotions, we'd all be dead now. We won't be here. And the example he gives, he says, if you see a tiger, la samahallah, if you see a tiger and you're face to face, what are you going to do? You're going to think about it? What are you? You're going to run. Fear is an emotion. And your decision to run comes from an emotion. So our decisions depend on our emotions. Let's not forget that. We post-rationalize it later. And of course you're going to run. And if you see this, what are you going to do? Are you going to think about the species of the shark? Or you're going to analyze this shark? No, you're going to swim. And I found this very funny cartoon of a dentist encountering the shark. And it says, the last moments. Because he stopped to think and critique the teeth that they have. He didn't survive, obviously, right? So we need emotions to survive. And that's how we make decisions. So those of you who have an iPhone, you swear by the iPhone. Even if I tell you that the Chinese are making better phones and they're making folding phones and they have, no. Apple is number one. That's pure emotion. And you are rationalizing it in your head, your decisions, especially when they market them the same way. You can't tell anymore, right? The first thing you do, logo, that's Apple, I love it, right? It's pure emotion. They're working on your emotion. It's not rational, trust me. It's not rational at all. And who understood that? Kia understood that about 12 years ago, 15 years ago. And they stole the head of design at Audi. Audi is known for its high-end design. So they brought Peter Schreier, and they told him, we want you in the boardroom. not just the back room. You can work in the back room with the designers, but we want you to be a business decision maker, a strategic thinker, a chief design officer. It's a new role that is emerging, and every government in Dubai wants that role, chief design officer. So think of that as a future job. What does a chief design officer do? They sit in the boardroom, they think strategically. So design is no longer an afterthought. It's not an engineer comes up with an idea or the marketing people come up with an idea, and then they call Peter Shire, hey, say, can you make it pretty? They ask him, how can we make sure that we increase the sales and we make sure our products are what the users want? Remember the window in the spaceship? How can you make that product desired by the people? And so he's a decision maker. And Kia was one of the first people. I'm sure you've noticed Kia along the streets, right? 15 years ago, it was just a blah company. More importantly, we did a study that when they released a new design that Peter Shire was part of the team that led it, they increased their sales 8 times. 8 times. From 200,000 cars to 1.6 million cars in 1 year. So if you're a business person, that's what you want. How did they do it? Through design. Coming back to Apple, when Steve Jobs came back to Apple in 1998, he said 2 things. He said that design is integral to what would make us great. He realized that design, and he doesn't mean making it pretty. What he means by design, remember, creative and functional solutions. Mixing creativity with function. So when you're designing, you're not forgetting of the function, you're driven by the function, but you're adding your creative level to it, which means that you're thinking about the user. And then he said, design dictates the engineering. That's why we love Apple. I'm not a lover of Apple, by the way, for different reasons. But I love their products. I love their designers. Their design team is the best. And when design dictates the engineering, what does that make you? It makes you the #1 company in the world with 3.4 trillion valuation. That didn't happen because of engineering. And that didn't happen because of business. It happened because of engineering business driven by design. Design is the driver. And if every company does that, like Kia, like Apple, and look at the Chinese cars. Don't they look German now? Do you know why? Because all their designers are coming from Germany. And the main design office for BYD is in Munich, Germany. It's not in China yet. Eventually, it'll move to China and everyone will move to China. Because they understood that's the key driver for people making decisions. So our students also think in the same way. We think about how do we make sustainable life? How do we apply strategic thinking to the way we solve problems? So in the first year, you will learn to create your own biomaterials. Of course, the sustainable development goals. Here's a student who has their own business. And they took the seed waste from date farming and created new materials that are now being used for construction. So instead of having a wall made of stone or plastic or foam or polyethylene, it's being made of date waste, date farming waste, purely biodegradable, all of that. Got a lot of funding and attention. So my first assertion that designers humanize technology, and my second assertion is that design repurposes strategy. So this is engineering, simple terms, and this is business. And that's what we do at the IDEA. We combine engineering, business, and design all at the same time. In the first year, that's what you're learning. And these are some courses with business. And that's our DNA. So our DNA is made of 4 C's. That's easy to remember. The first C is we make sure that you're able to come up with great ideas, the concept. We also make sure that you're able to communicate that idea to anybody. Oh, it's not clicking. Okay, so that's the second one. The third one is that we make sure you're able to make a prototype. So you learn the art of making. Because you can have the world's best idea, but if you can't communicate it and you can't make a prototype, it's not going to be understood by anybody. Fair enough? And most important, C, is the caring. It's like, why are we doing this? How are we caring for other human beings, other species, the planet, the universe, our community? So if you notice, all the projects I showed you always have a heart to them, like helping a visually impaired person to enjoy art, or helping a person who's being stressed at their computer to address it, or planting the desert, right? These are things that drive our students' projects. And that's what makes these projects desirable. And I want to point out that desirability is on the left side, feasibility and viability are on the, sorry, it's on the right side, and feasibility and viability are on the left side for a reason. Because our brain is actually functioning left side, right side. And typically, STEM education, which is the education we all go through, focuses on the left side of the brain. But innovation, creativity, and empathy belong to the right side of the brain, okay? So this is very important. And this idea comes from this book. So if you leave with anything today, I would highly recommend this book. I'll talk more about it. It's called A Whole New Mind by Daniel Pink. I don't know him, so I get nothing from this, just I love his ideas. And I'm going to share some of his ideas. He's saying why right-brainers will rule the future. Well, because the right brain is responsible for innovation, creativity, and empathy, which is the core of our DNA. So right brain aptitudes, he's saying, such as being innovative, creative, and empathetic, are the skills needed to help us succeed in this age. This is how we're going to humanize technology. This is how we're going to succeed in this rapidly changing world. So I'm arguing even the way schools are teaching are behind the times, because we focus on the left side, the logical side, the linear side versus the conceptual side. If you notice, concept is one of our first items that we want. And guess what? Which one do you think AI will replace first? Left side or right side? Left side's already replacing it. Correct. So that's why we need, as a higher education and as K-12 education, focus on developing those skills in you and the next generation and the one after. Yeah, so there was the robot with its food. So let me explain that in a simple way. Today, if we have a problem, how do we solve it? The traditional way is to throw money at the problem. And Uncle Pennybank, he wants his money back. It's not going to be for free. So I give you 100 dirhams. I want to have 120, and I'm going to ask you, when are you going to give it to me? And if you don't give me the right time, I'm going to say, okay, how about you? I give it to you, not to you. And then but I had a great idea. Tough, right? So it wants to make money. That's fine. The second way is to say, okay, what's the latest technology? Let's throw the latest gizmo on it. And we hope it's going to work. So today, it's AI. 2 years ago, it was VR. Three years ago, it was, I don't know, blockchain, right? So we just, what's the latest thing? And we try and solve it that way. And we hope. And most of the time, that computer becomes a monster, right? You get server errors, it crashes, it gives you the wrong information. And a good example is electric cars, right? When we think about electric cars, oh, we're going to solve the hydrocarbon world problem. We're going to solve pollution, all of that. Guess what we're doing? We're creating new problems. We are lithium mining. We are creating disastrous situations in specific parts of the world where it's lithium and nickel and whatever, all these things. So we solved one problem, but we created another one because we're thinking in a linear way. We're not thinking in a conceptual, holistic, synthetic way. We are using our left side of the brain to solve the problem. But we need to use both sides of the brain. I'm not saying we forget the left side. No, we need to use both sides of the brain. This is from 1967, classic movie. I wouldn't expect that you have watched it. But what's important is that Dustin Hoffman was being very naughty. And his uncle said, I want to talk to you. And he was worried that he would be telling about his naughty behavior. But he said, I have something very important for you. The future is plastics. In the 60s, we honestly thought that the future is in plastics. Here's a famous designer. He said, plastics is the environment of the future. We honestly thought, my grandmother was excited because now she could replace our Christmas tree with a plastic Christmas tree so we don't have to ruin the forests of the world. We don't have to chop down trees anymore. This is what we honestly thought. Think about that. We thought plastics are going to solve the environmental problems of the world. It's hilarious. It's ridiculous that we thought that, right? And so, of course, we have the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, but we also have the Great Indian Ocean Garbage Patch. But the Americans are better at marketing, so the Pacific one gets more attention than the one we have. But at least designers and engineers are finding solutions for it, and this is a wicked problem that we need to solve that needs creative thinking, design thinking, to solve it. So how do you really solve complex problems? Yes, we need it to be viable. Yes, we need it to be feasible, but we need to make sure it's humanized and desirable. We want people to want that solution. And what designers are looking for are starting with the people who have the pain point. Like I mentioned before, if I want to solve your problem, first I have to listen to you. Not tell you, you know what, here's AI, it's going to solve your problem, and here's 100 dirhams, it's going to solve your problem. Did I listen to you? No, I didn't listen to you, right? I imagine what your problem is. If we have time, I'll tell you a story about that one later. But empathy is the first driver. So I have to ask you, what is it that you need solved? What is your pain point? What do you suffer from every day at work or whatever we're trying to solve, right? And I want in the end, the way I measure the success of my solution is not by how much money I made. Yes, that's important. Or if it used the latest technology in a good way. Yes, that's important. But for me, what's important is did it touch you? Did it change you? Did it affect you? Did it improve your life? These are the questions that we want. We want to hear this. We want to see that. And then businesses are waking up and saying, wait a minute, yes, we need that as well. So now you hear business say, oh, we need a user-centered design. Hello? Designers have been doing this all their lives. Businesses are waking up, not because they're falling in love with their users, but they realize if it makes the user more productive, they're going to make more money. Fine, that's good. We don't mind that. That's good, as long as you're thinking about the user. The same thing with engineers. So what we're looking for are solutions that fire on both sides of the brain. And this is design thinking. Why is that design thinking? Because if you are going to college, who's trying to select a college now or trying to find a job? Everyone's fine? Okay, fine, good. So this lovely lady is she's graduating, she needs to find a job. Or she wants to go to college, she doesn't know where to go. What we say to you is that you need to learn a scientific problem solution, but that depends on empathy. So what is that? The good news is that it exists, and it's called design thinking. And we've been doing it all our lives. Like the dean of MIT, he told me, Hani, you know what? We've been doing design thinking all our lives, but no one told us it has a name. Right? We didn't know. So the business people gave it a name because it's a scientific problem solving starting with empathy. So it's both sides of the brain. And this is how we're going to solve the creative conundrum. Design thinking, in simple terms, is 6 steps. So we have empathy, identity, ideation, prototyping, testing, and iterating. And what's fascinating about this is that when we're teaching you design thinking and we're teaching you empathy, we're learning how to tolerate or developing our emotional intelligence. Tolerance is a value of the UAE, so this is perfect. When you're identifying the problem, you're learning how to think critically, and when you're ideating, you're learning how to collaborate and to co-create. When you are prototyping, you're learning how to communicate, and strategic messaging, very important for you to succeed. When you are testing, you are learning the fine art of listening, the humble art of listening, accepting feedback, and then realizing that what you're trying to do is complex, is not as simple as you thought it was. And then when you get that devastating feedback from the user, what you're learning is how do you deal with failure? How do you persevere, and how do you develop resilience? What's fascinating about this is that what we discovered is that instead of just teaching you design thinking, we're teaching you life skills. These are the skills that you need to succeed. So don't take my word for it. So critical thinking, complex problem solving, creativity, communication, emotional intelligence, and resilience is what the World Economic Forum has ranked as the top 5 skills that you need to succeed in the 4th Industrial Revolution, which are all core skills that you learn at DIDI. All of them. And this might explain why this article came out last summer, where this wonderful lady who finished her degree from Columbia in coding couldn't find work. She ended up being a waitress. She couldn't find work. Because if you're a coding company, why would you hire a person who needs health insurance, vacations, emotional support, maternity leave, whatever, when you can have a machine do the coding faster, 24/7, 365 days, and doesn't need anything? So does it make sense? So coding is not something that we would recommend. And again, don't take my word for it. Founder of Google's generative AI team says, don't even bother getting a law or medical degree. Does it make sense? These are linear, functional jobs. They are not purposeful and creative jobs. Another one, you get the idea. And maybe that's why we have 91% employability. I have to admit, I was surprised by the number. Our students, our alumni, 91% employability. That's crazy. We were shooting for 70, 75, which is the industry standard. We're at 91%, maybe because we are focusing on right side, left side training. So when we talk about the 4th Industrial Revolution, whether it's a steam engine, whether it's electrical, or whether it's a digital engine, what's interesting is that the first 3 revolutions, they augmented human labor. But the 4th Industrial Revolution, what it's doing, it's augmenting human intelligence. So that's why we argue with the World Economic Forum. They don't listen, but we argue with them that it's not the 4th Industrial Revolution. It's a new kind of revolution, because the first 3 were about brawn. Now it's about brains. So if the machine now is augmenting human intelligence, what is the area of humanity that the machine hasn't mastered yet? Brain, muscle, emotion. So that's why this is the age of design. We argue that this is the age of design because machines don't understand human context and they don't understand human emotion as readily as they understand human intelligence or can replicate it. And that's why the next dimension is understanding, managing the context, and managing the emotions of humans. The spaceship is a human context, so you have to understand it. Being in the spaceship is a human emotion, so you need to master that. And so you do that through effective communication, adaptive learning, good judgment. In simple terms, what the machine does today, it gives you the know what, knowledge. But what humans have to do now, so before we used to do the know-how. We used to know things, not the machine. Now the machine knows more than we do. Let's admit it. And can put it in a way better than we can. So what's the role of the human now? So if know-how is know what, the human is know why. Why are we doing this? Remember the care part? Why are we doing this? So we need to go back to our 2-year-old self and ask why. Why? Curiosity. Caring. This is what we need to be doing. In other words, we're learning or relearning emotional wisdom. Not emotional intelligence, emotional wisdom. And so as a university, this is what we have to change our whole entire program to make sure that we're teaching you the skills I showed you, which will lead to emotional wisdom. Because if we teach you knowledge, we're wasting your time and your money, right? So this is what we need to be doing. So the evolution of human knowledge starts with data. So if you want to go to the college, 50 years ago, your parents would say, you know what? Go study data sciences. It's the future. Computers, computer science, right? But guess what? The machine started doing the data crunching for you. We didn't need to know. So what do we do as humans? We say, okay, what's the next thing? From data, we go to information. Have you heard of the information age? in the 1970s and 1980s. So you go tell your child, go study information sciences. It's the future, like plastics were the future. And then what happens? The machine does information better than we do. And then we say, okay, fine, okay. So machine took over information, what do I need to do? You go develop knowledge. And this is where we are today. Today we are in the knowledge age. It's called the knowledge age. I didn't make this up. And that's why when you graduate from school or graduate with a PhD and all of that, we give you a degree because you generated new knowledge, a dissertation, a thesis, a paper, a presentation. All this is knowledge that you have generated. You've synthesized data and information, and you've produced knowledge. Well, in this age, so this is where we are today. So we're already way behind the times because now the machine is producing knowledge. I don't give essays to my students. What's the point? They spit out ChatGPT, they don't even read it, and they submit it. And I'm going to say, wow, they're so smart. They haven't learned anything because the machine is doing the knowledge. So now we need to shift to teaching wisdom. How do you do that? This is what we do. I'm going to show you how we do that. The know why. That's why these jobs are going away, because they're based on knowledge. We don't need humans to do knowledge anymore. So if you apply the design thinking method, you combine it with the World Economic Forum top skills, and you combine it with the Harvard Business Review 3 skills, guess what? This is what we teach you. This is what we're teaching you every day. This is our DNA. Maybe that's why we have 91% employability. I'm not sure, but I'm guessing we are helping you develop the new skills to be emotionally wise in this difficult world. So that's my third assertion. So when we combine design technology and business, and we apply the DNA, we provide you the way, the method we provide, the vehicle to provide it is to teach you 4 different disciplines of design: product, multimedia, which is computer design, fashion design, and strategic design. And you can argue with me, but that's traditional. Yes, it is traditional. And we tested it, and we applied it to the future jobs that we could imagine, and we discovered that if we teach you these things, you won't be ready for the future. You'll fall behind. So how do you solve that? So that's why after the first year, everyone has to double major. So remember, in the first year, you're learning business, technology, and design, and now you are combining 2 design disciplines together. What comes out from that? Wearables, smart glasses. Everyone's talking about smart glasses. This is Ray-Ban and Meta. If you study product design, it's not enough. If you study fashion design, it's not enough. But if you study both, Meta will pick you up immediately. You go straight to Meta and you're able to design smart glasses. That's just an example. Multimedia in fashion, interactive clothing, blockchain interaction. This is what the governments in Dubai, they're shifting to blockchain. Who will humanize? If I say blockchain, you freeze. What is blockchain? I have no idea. Right? So who's going to humanize it for you? A designer who understands blockchain, who studied multimedia and understands its strategic impact on society. This is what you do. Ethical fashion, chief design officer we talked about, and devices that are aware of the context that they're in. An example of that is the students at DIDI won a prestigious award in Austria where they took the palm tree by combining 2 studios in product and multimedia. They took the palm trees in D3, where we are. They measured, they put sensors so the wind, when they move, this movement generates energy, and this energy turns on the LED lights on the leaves. So you don't need street lighting, you just need a palm tree and the wind to light up your streets. And sensor to know that it's dark, so you don't waste that energy. Very simple idea. They had to code it, they had to make it work, they made a prototype, and they won a prestigious award. One of my goals as one of the founders of the school was to make it to the Global Grad Show. And the reason is the Grad Show was very, very big, 60 countries, 300 institutions, and it made every news media, and saying it's the best, there's nothing like it. So imagine, for me to measure whether we're doing the right thing is to make it in the global graduate. Well, guess what? We got 17 projects in the graduate before we graduated any students. And to the point where they started calling us, what do you have for us this year? Like, whoa, this is beyond my expectations. Not only that, they started a new program to accommodate the students' work called Global Grad Show MENA, MGS, right? And then it was taken over by the Prototypes for Humanity. This should be updated. Now we have 4 projects in that one, which is a very smaller, much more selective. And we're the only regional university that's made it 4 times. So I'm very proud of our students' achievements. But I have to say the feather in our cap is that when the Sustainable Markets Initiative, which is a part of Terra Carta is His Majesty King Charles III commitment to improve the climate in the world through committing companies to commit to providing solutions, and they raised money to create what is called the Design Lab, and it was headed by His Majesty and Sir Jony Ive. You know who Sir Jony Ive is? He's a designer of Apple. So for our students, he's more important than His Majesty, with all respect. With all respect. So Sir Jony Ive and His Majesty decided to invite 4 universities. So they invited the largest in Asia, the largest and the best in Asia, which is NID, which is the National Institute of Design in India, RISD, which is the #1 in the US, Royal College of Art, they are the chancellors of that university, so they had to invite it, and we were the 4th one. So when I received the email from the secretariat, I thought it was spam. I honestly thought it was spam. I deleted the message, like, come on. And like, why would the King of England want to contact us, who are a new, small university? I'm more proud because we got 2 winners of that competition. 2 of them are Arab women, and each one of them got 500,000 dirhams from His Majesty and 1-year mentorship with Sir Jony Ive. And in March, they shook the hand of His Majesty. So for us, this is a great, 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 great achievement, given the size and the age of our university. So in conclusion, when we're being asked to do the moonshot, which is Google's term for using the latest technology to solve a wicked problem, we're always being asked to use the latest technology to be innovative, advanced, and innovative. Yes, that we do. Remember, we are inclusive. We are the end, not the maybe. We are the end. What I want to make sure is that if you study design, you apply design thinking, what you're going to have, design-led technology is going to be humanized. And design-led advancement is going to be meaningful. And design-led innovation is going to be what people want, what the planet wants, what other species want. So desirability is the important thing. So if we want to humanize AI, make sure that we're creating an amazing world, you need to know design. And that's my spiel for today. Thank you for being so patient, and thank you for your time. I will take questions. Please ask me. Thank you.
I've heard about AI cloning people. Like, if the more you use it, they clone and they make another AI. Is that true?
Yeah, they're doing it already.
Okay.
Yeah, if you read there's a recent article, you can look it up. The programmers, they created a social network for AI bots. And this AI social network has been growing, and we've been watching it, and we've been listening to what they're saying. Sometimes they talk gibberish, but most of the time they are thinking about how do they maintain their growth and survival.
So is it a threat, or it's good for us? Is it a threat for us, or okay? So how do we overcome this? Like,
That's why we have to put our minds together and think about how do we humanize it and make sure that we work together. These are big questions. I don't have the answer. They're bigger than me. But the least we can do is make sure that whatever solutions we come up with are serving humanity, serving the planet, serving the universe. And with design thinking, you're able to think that way. But if you're thinking just about the technology, you're going to reach a dead end and not know what to do. But if you're thinking about us and the planet and nature at the end of this spectrum, you're beginning to ask the right questions. So we always say, we need to learn to ask the right questions. We don't have to have the answers. We just need to know how to think. Good question. Thank you. Scary one. Yeah. Yeah. Please ask me questions. Yes.
In this age of AI, everyone is forcing us to use AI. Like it's everywhere on Instagram, literally everywhere. So how do we use it ethically? Like what's the best way to use it?
So how do you use it ethically? That's why we focus on emotional wisdom. So one of my favorite philosophers, he said, having an open mind is not substitute for hard work. The hard work is learning and defining your ethical framework. And once you define your ethical framework, then you can make choices. Once you make choices, you can then figure out, okay, how will I use the AI? But you have to start with your own personal ethical construct. That's the hard work. Because most people, we've lost our ethical and moral compasses because the world we live in is a materialistic world. But we need to tap into our humanity and learn how to do it. I'll give you an example. Now you got me somewhere. I'll share my latest thinking. That if you catch yourself hating anything, or someone, or a people, or a race, or a culture, or a style, it means that your brain has been hijacked. So if you were, la samahallah, caught and someone tried to abduct you, you will fight, body, soul, and spirit, to prevent that. But if someone tries to do that to your brain, you wouldn't know. It's true. It's what the media does. And so our brains have been hijacked, and the only way you can tell is if you have an iota of hate or fear, irrational fear of somebody or somewhere, whatever. And that's when you know you're being hijacked. And that's when you have to go back to your ethical framework, define it, and say, when I was 2 years old, I didn't hate anybody. So hate must have come from outside of me. You see? It must have. So you have to go back to the root, and then you reestablish some people may go to their religion, to their spiritual understanding, to their familial values, whatever you choose. As long as you realize if you have an iota of hate or fear, your brain has been hijacked with you know. So you have to understand where that came from and challenge it, because in our nature as humans, we are loving creatures, we are forgiving creatures, and that's what, if you are religious, that's what religion teaches you, love and forgiveness. All religions, all of them, they teach this. So if we can go back to that, we reconstruct our ethical framework, and then we can deal with the machine. We are stronger than the machine in that way. But if we let the machine and the media define what our ethical values are, we're doomed as a species. I think so. Thank you for taking me there. I don't usually share this in public, but you got me there. Nice question. Yeah. Yes, please.
Thank you. Today you talked lots about emotional wisdom, and as I agree to you, it's a very good thing. But if AI takes that path and crosses this line that you draw and empowers it, what is your next step? What would you suggest for our human beings?
There's another book, the beautiful question. There's another book, it's called by Kevin Kelly, it's called The Inevitable. And he's saying if we think the machine is not going to cross that line, inevitably it is. It's going to cross that line. So ask me in 5 years, I will be able, because then I would have thought more about the machine, and we would have seen more results of the machine. Right now, it's unknown, but it's inevitable that's going to cross the line, for sure, no question. So, yeah, so we have to be prepared. And that's why if we go back to our ethical framework and have a clear understanding and realize what our values are, I think we can cope with a machine much better than just being, totally just passively consuming what the media feeds us, which is very dangerous, by the way. You understand? Thank you. Yeah. Yes, please.
Hi, so I was wondering, there are some more immediate steps before we reach any of these gloom and state. So the AI question, for example, I think that this is really important, that we know how much energy it consumes and how much fresh water it takes. So I think there is immediately now, as all the data centers are being built, what can design also contribute to that? That's one question. So before even the bigger issues of the cliff, etc. The second one is I'm very happy that you brought up some of the social innovations that you guys have championed, but at the same time you also brought up that Meta will hire you immediately. As long as we still feel that even emotional design or empathy-based design is still about monetization, I think that's the wrong approach. We need to think more broadly and how it contributes to humanity. So I'd really like to understand how your institute or institution or other institutions can contribute to that, to these quite immediate problems. One is the constant monetization of design, and which is ultimately encourages consumers to consume more, or exactly, and the kind of, yes, clever AI, but what is also eroding our environment?
Very good question also. I mean, at the end of the day, when we're graduating students, the parents want to know if they will find a job. That's the first question they ask. Yeah, or they have their own business. Yes. And as on my personal level, right, all this thinking led me to help found this university. So I'm not driven by material money. I'm driven by intellectual stimulation and ethical foundations. That's me. I cannot force it on others. I'm not an evangelist. I won't go evangelize. What I can do is provide you the skills. Now, where I'm encouraged is that in our second year, the students ganged up on me. At the time, I was the dean. I was head of the academic program. And they ganged up on me and said, Hani, if you're not going to teach us ethical design, we're leaving. Because they hadn't seen we hadn't launched the second year because they were the first batch. They were the first batch, right? And I was impressed by that because I have been teaching for a long time, almost 30 years now. And it's the first time I ever confront students, especially in a consumer-driven city like Dubai, which there's a stereotype that people are just pure consumers and luxury and, And they all grew up in Dubai. And they came to me, if you're not teaching us ethical design. And I was like, it is going to be ethical. Here's the program. I showed it to them. And of course, as co-creators, I listened to their feedback and all of that. And we improved it. But I never got that question before. So I'm encouraged that the youth, thanks to the schooling system, I know in Dubai, the schooling system is very aware about environmental education and all of that. So to answer your question is that what we can do is teach the skills. What you do with them is really on an individual level. But we instill in them because we have the care in one of the C's. There's a lot of focus on how can we. So, for instance, every year our students go to Al Noor Center. You know Al Noor Center? It's for children with, in Dubai they call it determination, right? So every year the students spend the whole semester with the students. And what's interesting is that they develop empathy with the patients or the children who are there. So they've designed clothing for children on the spectrum. They've designed a device that will improve their physical exercise, those with physical handicaps. And what's interesting, that's the empathy, is that one student designed a device because one of the patients told him in private, the coaches, we know they lie to us. We know that. I'm not doing good with the exercise, but they lie to us to encourage us. And so what he devised is a device that you attach to your leg that makes, with a GPS, that measures the angle and the direction, and it gives you light, immediate light, to improve your movement. And when it's right, it lights up in a certain way, and it's not lying to you. And it's not discouraging you either. So that's a level of empathy that we want. And I have trust. I say, if this generation is not smarter than we are, then we are not evolving as humans, right? So I have limitations, and I know that the next generation will overcome those. And we gave you a world that is a disaster. So our responsibility is to give you the tools to fix it. I will end it at that. Thank you so much. Thank you.